Hello, my amazing children. This is Grandma Carla, and I am here with a little drummer mouse. And this is by Mercer. And I wanted to read a lot of these to you before Christmas, but I figured since I didn't get that done, I would go ahead and put them on my channel so that you could listen to them either early for next year or late for this year. But they're always good stories, aren't they? And this one is a favorite. The Little Drummer Mouse. For Autumn Sage Mayer, our first grandchild, when I first saw you, I just had to dance. And if I were a pony, I would have to prance. And if I played a guitar, I would have to strum. And if I was a drummer, I would have to drum. But I am your grandpa, and so I wrote a poem. Isn't that cute? Here's the story. It had always seemed, for as long as the little mouse could remember, that he followed along behind. He was the smallest in the family, and because it was hard for him to keep up with his brothers and sisters, his mother worried about him a great deal. So she made a tiny drum for him out of a hollow acorn. "My littlest one," she told him, "you are always lagging behind, but at least I'll hear you beating on your drum, and that way I won't lose you." So there's Mother talking to her little one. Sometimes it's hard to find, but there he is right there. We'll try to find him in every picture here. The little drummer mouse, as he came to be called, loved playing on his acorn drum and carried it with him everywhere. But his big brothers and sisters often teased him. "Parum, parum, parumpity pum, all you can do is beat on your drum," they would chant. And there he is on his little drum with his brothers and sisters making a little bit of fun of him. See them up there making fun of him because he just plays on his drum. The other forest animals also laughed and teased him. Although the little drummer mouse badly wanted to play with them, he was much too small to join in their rough and tumble games. Instead, he would sit under the oak trees and beat tap, tap, tap on his little acorn drum. "What's all that noise?" asked a young squirrel. "Don't you know you're supposed to eat acorns? My mother told me not to play with my food." "Go play your drum to the stars. At least you won't bother them," added a rabbit. And there he is, right down there, and they're making fun of him and telling him to go play to the stars. And so that's just what he did. On clear nights, when the mouse family was tucked in bed, the little drummer mouse would often creep outside to the farmer's field. There he loved to watch the stars twinkle back at him as he tapped along, and they even seemed to enjoy his playing as much as he did. So there he is. Let's see if I can show you right there. He's there. There's all the other big animals, but he's just there, and he's going tap, tap, tap to the stars. Then one day, in autumn, the raven returned to the forest and called to the other animals to gather around. He had astonishing news, for he had heard that the greatest king of all was soon to be born among men. By wintertime, the royal family would pass right through this very forest on their way to the town where the baby king would be born. The excitement in the crowd was so great that the little drummer mouse gave a quick drum roll without even thinking. An old grumpy otter frowned and shushed him. You have to look really hard on this one to see the little drummer mouse. And there everybody is all excited, but they're telling him to be quiet. They're excited because they're going to all get to see a king. you know who the king is? It's the little baby Jesus, isn't it? We should do something to welcome them, a deer called out, and everyone murmured in agreement. You're right, said the wise owl. We should make the forest beautiful for their journey and offer gifts to the royal baby. Everyone said that this made perfect sense, and for weeks they cleaned and decorated the wild forest. Many of the animals brought wonderful gifts for the baby as well. And there's our little drummer mouse right there. And look at what they're doing to the forest. They've got bells and all kinds of things they're cleaning up for the baby king. Then they waited. One morning there came a big snowfall, which covered the forest trees in the farmer's field. But on this cold winter's day, very few travelers passed through the forest. There was only a poor man leading a donkey and a woman wrapped in a thin blanket who rode on the donkey's back. By this time, the animals had grown tired of waiting, for it seemed the royal family would never come. Well, if this doesn't beat all, said a stylish boar, and after we've done all this work, they have some nerve, added a brown bear. There's our little drummer mouse right there. And everybody's kind of grumbly because the king and the royal family did not show up, or so they thought. The animals were all very upset, but the wise owl calmed them down. After all, he said, they're the royal family. No doubt something of great importance came up and the trip was canceled. That cheered everyone up. And since they had prepared a grand celebration, they had a wonderful party anyway. They danced and sang and ate until the sun set, and the first stars of evening twinkled in the heavens above. There, little bitty mouse right there, our little drummer mouse. And everybody's having a big party with everything they had saved up to celebrate the king coming. Later, snug in his bed, the little drummer mouse was still too excited to sleep. Looking out the little window in the bedroom he shared with many brothers and sisters, he noticed a new bright star that shone down from heaven. It was the most beautiful star he had ever seen. Quietly, he took his acorn drum and crept out to the field to get a better look. Well, let me see if I can find him in this picture. I think it doesn't show him creeping, but I think this might be him right there, up in the bed, looking out. Everybody else is asleep, and this one is awake, so I think that one might be our little drummer mouse. All the other mice are asleep. So he was so intent on watching the star that he didn't notice 3 tall figures crossing the field in his direction. Young mouse, said a sudden deep voice, we are looking for a stable. Is there one nearby? The little mouse turned and trembled with fear at the 3 men who towered over him. Who are you? Stammered the little mouse. The one in blue spoke. We are 3 kings from far away, seeking a child born in a stable beneath the star. This child will be a great king, even greater than us. But how can that be? Asked the little drummer mouse, being very brave. Kings aren't born in stables. This one was, said the tallest king. Now will you tell us where there is a stable nearby? The little mouse pointed the way. The 3 kings thanked him, and he watched as they walked away, followed by the strangest animals he had ever seen. Upon their backs were large humps, and upon the humps were chests of treasure. So we know what those animals with humps are. Those are camels, aren't they? And there, I didn't point out the little mouse. He's down here on the ground. They're talking to him. I wish I could see the baby king, thought the little drummer mouse. Perhaps I will just peek and no one will notice me since I am so small. Pulling his courage together, the little mouse set off after the three kings. The stable was not much more than a shed, but it was warm. As the little drummer mouse squeezed through a crack in the wall, he saw a crowd of farmers and shepherds. He watched as each person stepped forward to lay something shabby and simple before a manger. Over the manger stood the man and the woman who had passed through the forest the day before. Here they are. And here's the little drummer mouse. He's hoping no one will see him. And there's a donkey, and looks like a hen or a rooster. And there's Mary, and she's right in front of the manger. And over here, I didn't see it at first, but there's all of the shepherds and the wise men all worshiping the baby Jesus. Then the three tall kings came forward to give their rich and beautiful gifts. There was gold and silver and perfume that smelled wonderful. So it is true, thought the little mouse. He must indeed be a great king. I'd better be going. After all, I have not been invited, and I have nothing to give. He tried to creep back out through the crack, but a shepherd's foot was blocking the way. There's the little drummer mouse. He's trying to sneak away. Everybody else is so big. The shepherds began to play a tune on their harps and flutes. The sound was so lovely that the little drummer mouse began to tap along on his acorn drum. He became lost in the magic of the song and didn't notice until the other musicians fell silent. The baby had awakened, and the young mother lifted him from the manger. She turned towards the little mouse, who was still tapping, and said, "Bring forth the drummer and raise him up so that he may see." Suddenly, two large hands scooped him up. The little drummer mouse cringed in terror, but to his surprise, the woman smiled at him and said, "You, tiniest of all, keep playing on your little drum. The baby seems to like that sound the best." There's our little mouse who was trying to stay hidden, but he just couldn't help but play when everyone else was playing. The little drummer mouse looked at the baby, and the baby laughed. Then he began to play again, slowly at first, then a little faster. Everyone listened and smiled, and he could have shouted for joy. The flute chimed in, followed by the harp. Soon, everyone in the stable joined along, playing and singing a beautiful song. There's the little drummer boy up in the big man's hand, and everyone is enjoying the music, especially the little baby. For the first time ever, the little drummer mouse with his little acorn drum wasn't being teased or following along behind. He was leading instead. There's the picture. It shows the little baby wanting to reach after the little mouse, didn't it? And there's the picture. Now, of course, we know that that's a make-believe tale because it has a little mouse that plays a drum and talks, and men that can listen to the little mouse talking. But there are parts of that story that are not make-believe. The little baby born in a manger did not just come for those that were rich or that were big or that were able to bring him lovely gifts. He came for all of us. He came for all of us, big and small, and rich and poor, and wise and not so wise. He came, the baby Jesus, for the whole world, and he came to be our Savior. And I hope you enjoyed this story about the little drummer mouse. This is Grandma Carla, and I love you.